streaming. We back? Not sure. That kind of looks a bit more normal. I think we are back.
Some point in his human experience, he'll be born again. I'm not intimidated by letters around names, doctors of divinity, doctors of medicine, none of it.
Oh man, that was a...
What matters to me is that the Holy
What a crazy 10 minutes that was.
Spirit lives in and through me.
I don't know why the internet went down. And then I had 0 kilobytes in the red. And then as soon as I switched it off, it come back online. How weird was that?
And he's helped me to realize that this world is not what we're being told it is.
Hey, Brent, how you doing, dude? Hope you're well, mate.
Time deception.
I know.
That is.
I don't know what's going on. The internet went down when I started playing this video. As soon as I stopped it, the internet come back on. I'm not shit. There was like a yellow alert thing on that. Now it's how strange.
Right now, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 says they refused to love the truth and so be saved. Therefore, God sends them a powerful delusion.
Absolutely crazy.
And they'll believe the lie. What kind of lie? Well, there's a lot of lies that you can believe in it and you'll still end up in heaven. However, the truth about Jesus and that an individual needs to be born again to even see the kingdom of heaven, that's one that you need to get right. Now, just so you're aware, roughly 3 people per second.
I don't know, you know, according to that, what's his name? Aaron Hillman, his version of Jesus wasn't that great. According to the Greeks. According to the Greeks.
Slip off into eternity without their body anymore. Their soul is going to go to heaven or hell. That's roughly 52.8 million per year worldwide. Okay, so that's really important to know the truth about the state of your soul. The battleground is actually in our minds. What we see, hear, think, believe, do, all about that. What's hanging in the balance is our eternal soul. That's what's going on here. We need to be born again, or we're not going to go to heaven. That's the bottom line on that. So that's why I leveraged the fantastic opportunity with modern cinematography, the iPhone that this is being filmed on, or my Nikon Coolpix, and then social media to share this to the ends of the earth, around the clock. Isn't that spectacular? Look at that. I've been filming out here for about 2 years now. I would say this is the most spectacular day ever. I am so thankful to be one of God's children, to be born again, to have His Spirit living in and through me. I'm alive. By and large, much of humanity is in a prison they don't know exists. The prison is their mind. What's held captive is their soul. I was one of those captives. So I'm taking pictures and sharing the beauty of God's creation with people. What I want to do also is share with them a world that they don't realize in many cases exists. and that is heaven. Heaven and hell are real. I'm not telling a bunch of people to start doing and stop doing stuff. That's not what this is about. I'm not a legalistic individual at all. What I am sharing with people is that since I've been born again, my passion is to hear, share, and obey God's word. It's the greatest satisfaction ever. So His word is hidden in my heart. His Holy Spirit lives in and through me. What an absolute joy.
I want you viewers to understand this. The God of heaven, you have rejected the counsel of God for years. And God is giving you another chance now to accept his word and obey it. If you don't take advantage of this opportunity and remain stubborn and remain hard-headed and reject the love of the truth, what will God do to you?
And for this cause, God shall send them strong delusion.
Forget about Geno Jennings. Just forget all about him.
Right.
Forget his name. Right. Who gonna do it?
God shall send them strong delusion.
And what is the effect of this delusion? You know, this is scary.
Yes, it is.
This is a very scary thing. Not the devil.
God.
God gonna do this.
God.
And
God shall send them strong delusion.
And what?
That they should believe a lie.
Look at it. Let me down.
Who believe not the truth.
Jesus or Buddha, or an alien overlord appearing above your city.
Check out this. I only got 25 minutes anyway, guys. Let's check out Stellium 7. This is the dude that was going around with Hangman looking at the ancient. Interesting dude, actually.
Theory of gravity, you find out that it's also on flimsy ground, and that other things like density and buoyancy and static cosmology and the age of things.
Let's go into giant trees, giant things, giant animals.
Sure.
This is fascinating.
That's really how my channel began. It's about 7 years old now, my YouTube channel, and I started it because I was making observations that were so far out that if they were true, it just completely shattered the prevailing paradigms when it comes to geology and what we know about how stone forms. And it really began about 8 years ago, came on the heels of waking up to the possibility that the earth might not be what we were taught. And I don't make claims about what it is, but I am pretty confident about what it isn't now. And I spent a lot of time.
A magical ball of water.
Yeah, the spinning oblate.
Spinning testicle.
With water that sticks to the outside.
Spinning testicle with water wrapped around it.
Alex Michael, conspiracy music guru. Shout out to Alex. He lives in the same town that I'm in Spain. And he got me questioning Earth shape about 10 years ago. And I thought he was an absolute fool to even consider something so ridiculous. I was a big space junkie. I was big into science. I read all the books I could find on things like quantum physics, and had the science magazines and what the latest theories were, and I was very enamored of that, and especially of the scientific method. And I grew up watching Star Trek and Star Wars, and so he starts to like tug at the threads of my reality a little bit. And initially, I just hand-wave dismissed it. And thought this guy, I thought he was pretty smart because we were, comparing notes on a lot of things and we were on the same page. And then he brought that up and I'm like, oh, he has no discernment. If he's willing to believe something so absurd, then I can't really trust anything he says. And and so then he finally got me to look into it, and I figured it would take me 5 or 10 minutes to debunk the things that he was bringing to me. And that's how you end up questioning the nature of the realm, is trying to prove that what we were taught is true, because then you start to get into NASA fakery and SpaceX fakery and green screens and bubbles in space and gas pressure existing without a barrier against a vacuum. There's all these things that actually we just accept at face value. And of course, there's, all sorts of excuses or explanations that will follow after the claim to support it. But on face value, a lot of it is just absurd. And then you start to find evidence.
Hey, welcome in, Chris. Matthew, welcome in.
That and that.
Fiona, welcome back. Charlie, welcome back.
Is it just money?
Silent.
They couldn't.
Oh, there's
actually go to
Matthew.
the
Welcome
moon,
in.
So they decided to fake it instead. Have they ever been there at all? Where's the evidence for that? And the more I started looking into all that, I'm like, what is going on here? I took psychedelics in my youth, but I haven't taken them for almost 12 years now. I mean, reality got so weird as I started to dig into this stuff.
It
I
is.
felt like they were unnecessary.
Reality literally becomes like a hallucinogenic trip. That's what it becomes. So you don't have to take magic mushrooms.
Is psychedelic, to your point of
Just look at your
on
reality.
television for the first time in many years, right? It's like
Yeah.
Truman Show on steroids.
Yeah, it was literally almost like a psychedelic experience last
Yeah.
night when I was in my hotel room. And someone once said of my channel, you said, your videos are more powerful than psychedelics because they don't wear off. So some people see the things that I present and it permanently alters their perception of reality in in the way that psychedelics do, but they usually, 8 hours later, you're back to baseline. And,
Yeah.
So hopefully I haven't, misled people and, infected them with my mania.
I mean, I think.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, back to the fakery. I mean, that was. I didn't trust the institutions as a whole. I don't think ever in my life. I never fit in. Never wanted a normal job. I only finished 7 grades in school. Like I've never been easily fit into the boxes, and unfortunately, that manifested as a lot of rebellion that got me in a lot of trouble. I didn't go to jail for as long as you did, though, even a week. They only got me for a few hours. But the space stuff, man. To your point, the funding and the level of just effort and sophistication of all of the falsified data and content. I mean, that's the thing that got me sort of going down that direction too. It's like, why would they go through so much effort for so many decades to create a completely, just a fabricated reality? And then looking at the Challenger shuttle, and I mean the moon landings at this point are just like, I mean, a 5-year-old you could sit down with a 5-year-old for 5 minutes and go, hey, is this real? I mean, it's so obvious, right? NASA's budget, what is it, I think it's $69.7 million.
It's closer to 80
Is it?
million a day now, I think.
Okay, not per decade, per day.
And that's just NASA. That's not counting
Yeah,
SpaceX, which is
SpaceX.
also completely subsidized by the government.
Yeah. So it's just like, whoa, there's some black ops going on that are,
Where's
just
all that money going?
Yeah, it's just beyond our comprehension. So I'm with you there. So there's a whole kind of exploration, no pun intended, on what's going on outside of this realm. But what is so interesting to me about your work is you've really delved into what's been happening and is happening within this realm.
Yeah.
And some of these ideas online in this particular category get pretty far-fetched, yet at the same time, as I've come to understand, what very little I do about this reality we live in, is really starting to get a visceral sense that the Earth itself is a massive organism, and that everything on it in terms of scale is almost like a bacterial film on the surface. If you look at the sheer scale, so the idea of giant trees or giant animals or even things that have been, scientifically presented to us, like the giant dragonflies you talk about, it's like the scale actually it doesn't feel that unrealistic when you look at the scale of the planet and, the fact that it's a living, breathing, intelligent entity in and of itself that supports all of this, very minute life on its surface. So when I kind of really zoom out and look at it from that perspective, this all doesn't. It starts to sound pretty, easy to accept.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, not all of it, but much of it, especially the work you're doing because you provide proof. So take us from the start of kind of your lane, your
Mhm.
area of research and what you've discovered that is counter to what we've been taught.
Well, we can go back to your question about the trees. I came across a video, I think it was called No Forests on Flat Earth, about 8 years ago. And that was presenting this idea that these tabletop mountains in the Tepuis, like these famous just plateaus that jut upward in Venezuela, and they have these waterfalls that just perpetually run from the top of them, that those might actually be the remains of giant trees. And a lot of it was very visually compelling, but I wasn't ready to throw my hat in the race when it came to any of that. I just thought it was cool, you know. Um, and then later on, I was exposed to the idea that a lot of the dating systems might be inaccurate and that things might actually petrify a lot quicker than we were taught. And I was like, wow, that's interesting because our geological timelines support our heliocentric timelines, the cosmological timelines. It's all baked into one thing. And we're told the universe is 16 point something billion years old, and then the Earth is 4.6, I believe. And they know this because with their telescopes, they've looked back in time to the where everything supposedly originated from, and they know like what day it happened. You know, that's the kind of
Telescopes
That's the
and
that's the
claim.
kind
time
of narrative.
travel.
No, not the day. I'm being sarcastic, but that's the idea, is that they're extrapolating based on this telescope information. And then you've got your geological timelines, and so megaflora, megafauna exists in the mainstream model also. We have the dinosaur narrative, and then we have all of these examples of gigantic plant life and insects and other things in the fossil record. So the cataclysm has been discussed in the mainstream, and that they say that there are like 5 major dyings off that have occurred in our realm. And if you go to the ancients and you look at the ancient cosmologies and you look at the mythologies and the legends, these things are all supporting stuff that I've been finding, which I wasn't aware of when I began. It just began as a what if, like what if these big trees were real, and what if the myths of titans were actually had some sort of a basis in fact beyond just dinosaurs that got wiped out by an asteroid strike 65 million years ago. And then also just what is stone. There's a lot of stone that I've seen. I always love to collect rocks and gems, and I love the beauty of them, and felt like they had some kind of an energetic thing going on, but I never like understood what is stone. And there were a lot of things that I saw that looked biological to me. I work as a chiropractor in Spain, and I trained after my undergraduate degree in California. I moved to Europe, and then I ended up in Sweden, and I did my chiropractic training in Sweden. And so anatomy, histology, which is the study of tissue, biology, these are things that I've studied a lot. But I never considered that maybe that stone that I was looking at that has a biological look to it had a far more direct biological look, or a connection to biology than we were taught. Because ultimately we're taught that all the layers of the earth are from dead plant and animal life that have laid down, created the soil, eventually compressed, and that compresses into these sedimentary layers, especially when it's under the ocean floor, because you get all the pressure from the water. And then those layers become more and more compact, and they start to melt. And we call that metamorphic rock because it's morphing into something else. What's it morphing into? Ultimately into magma and lava. And then it shoots up through the volcanoes. And then and that's the cycle of petrogenesis, sedimentary to metamorphic to magma, and then comes back and it loops back around. And I never questioned any of that stuff. I was never that interested in geology. I was always space. We want to get off this rock before we get hit by a rock, right?
Yeah.
So I was a big Star Trek and Star Wars lover. My kids, I tried to play the original Star Treks to them, and they laughed me out of the room because they were just like already way too sophisticated. Their video games are way better than the stuff they were showing us back then in the 70s, you know. So it began with the trees, and then I I live in this town that has this mountain. It's called Montgo, Montgo, with a little apostrophe on the O. And it's also known as the elephant because it looks a lot like an elephant that's lying down with its head tilted back. And I always loved this mountain. I've lived in Spain now for 14 years, and I'd been hiking this mountain 7 or 8 years before these ideas popped into my head. And one of the cardinal features of this mountain, when you look at it from the side, is there's a cave. So you have a head shape, and there's a cave exactly where the eye would be that's shaped like an eye socket. And it even has, like, we have this eyebrow ridge above our eye. Elephants don't have eyebrows, but they've got that bony protuberance there, and that's there. And I started looking at that thing, going, what if that was a petrified creature? I thought, this is a fun exercise. It's a intellectual flight of fancy. You know, I felt the same thing about flat Earth. A lot of people have these knee-jerk reactions to flat Earth, like, you're an idiot if you even consider such a thing. And I'm like, are you though? You know, and do the people who are promoting these ideas, do they have any ideas that have merit? You know, or are they just idiots? And the more you dig, the more you find out these are people who are doing empirical experimentation. They're doing laser tests. They're doing mirror flash tests. They've got infrared photography and are seeing hundreds of miles, which doesn't make sense on a ball that's the size they tell us. And they're sending up balloons to look at the horizon at 125,000 feet. You don't hear this about the flat earthers. You just hear that they're fools that have fallen for whatever the latest psyop is. So I decided to play this what if game. And I'll say, be careful of the what if questions you ask, because they can change your life irrevocably. You know, it definitely happened with my life. So I initially started with just Google Earth, looking in 3D, because you can tilt and pan and rotate, and learned how to use the mouse and hold the control, and, you know, and after about an hour of looking at this mountain on Google Earth, I was like, there's like 10 different features. Now, I didn't know the word for pareidolia, but I was aware of the concept. Pareidolia is where you see something that's not real. And you think, you see a face in a cloud, or you see a face in knots in wood or something like that. That's pareidolia. Obviously, it's not a real face. It's just, it looks like one. And I was aware of that, but this was, because there were a lot of photographs going around. You had the tree thing, and then you had people looking at mountainscapes, and it looks like a titan creature lying on its back, and you can see the outline of the face and everything. I was like, okay, that's cool, but let's see it from lots of different angles. Let's see it up close and personal. Are there caves there where the eye sockets should be? Like, what does it look like inside the cave? Is there anything that matches anatomy inside the cave, right? And there was none of that. I was, I thought the images were compelling, but there's no follow-up. There's no in-depth analysis. Yeah, so I'm looking on Google Earth, and there were like 10 different features. Like, there's the head shape is correct, the eye is located correctly. There was a quarter moon shaped discoloration on the mountain, right where it looked like an ear would have been removed, and then where the head meets the shoulders on both sides of the mountain, it curves in there, right? And then you have what appears to be a spine, what appear to be rib cage, and a big deep canyon right between where the legs would be, which I had climbed up many times and never pondered I might be like an ant on some gigantic creature. So after that first foray into Google Earth, I had a laundry list of like 10 different anatomical correlations on the macro. And I was like, this is crazy. Already it was getting weird, because I loved to play games of chance. Backgammon is one of my favorite games. And I know what odds are, and the odds of seeing a mountain that looks like a face, that's not very high. If you've got a active imagination, you're artistic minded. But when you start adding to the list and you have specificities, it gets less and less likely that what you're looking at is pareidolia. There's another term called apophenia, which is similar to pareidolia, but it's recognizing a pattern that doesn't exist. And we'll talk about that in a little bit further on with some of the other discoveries that I made. But that's this idea that you're looking for connections, and then you start to make connections, but you're just tricking yourself, and you're bending over backwards to make things fit in with your idea. That's apophenia. So I was aware of these concepts from the very first video, and as a chiropractor, I wasn't eager to like come out and say, hey, I think that mountain there might have once been a giant creature that's 3 miles long and 1 mile tall. It doesn't look good. And so I was very cautious about how I approach things. And from the first video, I was already introducing these concepts to people and saying, this is what people will say. They'll say I'm cherry picking my information. They'll say I'm suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect because I don't know anything about geology because I have no formal training. And what is formal training, really? I mean, we're talking about peer review is the highest form of this academic, conquest for truth. And yet it's inherently flawed because peer review is in and of itself an appeal to authority, where people who already have maybe a vested interest in a narrative because they're professors and they have tenure are the ones deciding which ideas have merit or don't, and which ones get in or don't. So I'm not a big fan of, much of academia because it's just rote memorization or regurgitation. And there's almost no cross-disciplinary pollination when it comes to different ologies, let alone compartmentalization within a particular academia. So you've got compartmentalization in the corporate structure, in the military structure, in the intelligence agency structure, and then you've got peer review, and it's like, oh, if you come out, 30 years ago with an idea that went against Einstein's, bending of space-time, you had no hope of getting any funding or so.
I think that right there, just to just bookmark where you were, because we're on a good track here. But I think when it comes to questioning ideas that are so deeply ingrained and so big, that's one of the things that we really are up against, because the counter would be, well, how could everyone be in on it, right? If there are some controllers of information or people that are propagating, massive scale psyops, it's like, well, my uncle's a biologist or a geologist or quantum physicist. It's like they're not a bad person.
So many people be wrong.
They're not a liar. And it's like the compartmentalization and the pyramidal structure of information. And plus what you mentioned of the siloed kind of, areas of study and expertise, people that are credentialed within their own compartmentalized system, they're not even touching the compartmentalized system next to them and so on, right? So it's like, it makes sense that these falsehoods proliferate and continue on in perpetuity, because there's really no way out of the box until people like you and people like me and other,
And it's not always an agenda at play. Oftentimes it is. But there's a wonderful line: if they can get you asking the wrong questions, it doesn't matter what your answers are.
Exactly.
And so I don't, and the they, who's the they in that sentence, right? They, but I think that most of the people that say geologists, I mean, there's probably tens of thousands, if not more, and they're highly educated. Most of them, I think they completely believe the things that they're saying, and they have good intentions, and they're good people. There are probably some who are gatekeepers and are pushing false narratives knowingly. But I coined the term paradigm blindness, because that's the answer to how. Like, how can so many people be wrong for so long? Well,
you've coined that?
Well, I looked on Google and nobody else had been using it when I started using it.
I love that term. And
and it's so applicable in so many instances.
Best terms, heliopsychosis.
Because that's exactly what's happening, is we are turning our eyes away from the obvious, maybe from our sensory experience, from our visual experience, our empirical experience of reality, because we've been taught that those things that we're experiencing couldn't possibly be true. So we're blinded by our paradigm, and heliocentrism is a perfect example of this. They make all of these unsubstantiated claims, and then that just becomes the narrative, and that's pushed, and then it's worked into all the Hollywood movies and television shows, and you're bombarded constantly with it, and
Yep.
people don't like to have their ball taken away, obviously.
On that note,
Nice
just think about, the way Hollywood and the media work. We see, a movie like Avatar, right, which has some really deep meaning. It really affected people on a deep level because there's something I think innate in us that gets that.
Did you
So-
cry when the tree came down?
I don't remember. I'm pretty tough, so probably not. No, I don't remember, but it's just this archetypal saga, right? And
Yeah.
on some level, many human beings really resonate with that. But speaking of paradigm blindness, it's still in the spherical, planetary model, right?
Right.
So it's like,
Yeah, so
Why-
that gets into the truth in plain sight. And
Why-
is,
why
is
has
this
there-
is this a tip of the hat to the real history, the real truth,
right?
or is it just some unconscious, like you said, archetypal
Yeah,
experience that's ingrained in all of us that we there's a part of us that feels the loss of that world, but maybe that world was actually this world in a previous era, and that's
Right.
the conclusion that I've come to. I believe that the reality is fractal in nature. I
we
was
go.
a big fan of the Talbot book, Holographic Universe, years ago.
Never heard of
I
that.
read that, and it just resonated with me because when you look at microscope or macroscope, we see the same repeating themes. And when we look at how water flows, and we look at all of these things are following the same patterns.
Totally.
So I have no problem whatsoever with, if we're this big, there might have been another era where things were a fractal level up.
Yeah.
And what would two fractal levels up look like?
I mean, look
you
at the
know?
nervous system of a gopher next to the tree structure of a mighty redwood.
Hmm.
Pretty close. I mean, that might be a bad example, but you get the point, right? It's like everything is really just repeated patterns over and over again
Hmm.
at varying degrees of scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what I've
that's,
been saying for a long time, right? We've got a scale problem. Exactly what I've been trying
that
to tell
gives us
guys.
clues about how things work also. And so I think we moderns, especially people in the Western world, are, we grow up with all these beliefs about the nature of the universe, and then
Hey,
the
Jeff.
other stuff is relegated to fiction,
Welcome back, Chill.
legend, myth, fairy tale, folklore, or religious texts, which also fall into those categories. But yet they were all singing the same tune. It was a cosmic egg model. We were on a topographically flat plane in some kind of an enclosure, whether it's an energetic or a physical barrier, and things were a lot bigger back then. And like I said, megaflora, megafauna are also acknowledged by mainstream geology. So the question is, if you start getting into questioning the nature of the realm, you don't have to assert a shape. You don't have to know ultimately what it is to start to know what it isn't. And if you start to know what it isn't, then that should open your mind to the possibility that maybe there are far more lands further out.
Yeah.
We don't know what the heck's going on under the ocean. We don't know if the earth is hollow. Can you go in? There's all kinds of stuff
Why
that
have
we
we
can't
not-
answer.
Why have we not been able to drill past, what is it, like 7.4?
8 miles.
8 miles?
And that took them 20 years, and they were using all kinds of different technology to try and predict what was coming, and they were constantly wrong. So we're supposed to just believe their stories about the Earth is 8,000 miles in diameter, 4,000-mile radius. They're talking about molten spinning cores that are giving rise to our magnetic field, which is silly because if you melt a magnet to liquid, it loses its coherence. It's no longer magnetic.
Really?
There's
Oh,
yeah.
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
So but if you take that 8 miles, that's like not even the skin on an apple. Like that's for a 4,000-mile
Yeah.
radius, and yet we're told all these. Our school books are filled with these animated photographs of like cross sections of the Earth and the mantle and all this stuff, and it's just propagated as fact. And that
Yeah.
this has all been discovered and figured out long ago. And I think most of that is just complete bullshit at this point.
That fact that humankind has not been able to go any deeper than that 8 miles. I'm sure you've seen the video where I don't know. I guess he was in a submarine, right? A diver gets down to a certain level at the ocean and essentially hits a barrier.
It's a lake under the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah. He
And the
died.
one-
He
and-
died a couple weeks or something after that video came out.
That's curious.
So yeah,
And
I-
also
you know,
there's a video of a rocket going up, and there's, I think the camera's like on top of it, and it goes clunk boink.
yeah, it makes this sloshing sound, and then it just falls back down to the earth. But
Yeah.
that's called the Go Fast rocket,
Oh,
and that
okay.
is a very interesting bit of footage.
Incredible.
Yeah,
I mean,
and,
based on that, just a little tangent here, but based on that, like whatever people think the shape of the planet is, and I really don't care what anyone else thinks or believes.
Plane.
Good for you, whatever you're into. But it seems to be, based on those couple observations, that we're in an enclosed system, right? A pressurized enclosed system that has some sort of magnetic or energetic barrier that contains the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because there's no proof of getting down or out,
Yeah.
right? And then you have Antarctica, the treaty,
Yeah.
1959. Every single
got to save the penguins in the ice.
Yeah, every
It's
single
the most important thing.
every single country on Earth that has supposedly been, adversarial and at war for
Also, the spacefaring nations.
yes, hundreds of
Because
years.
if space is fake and they fake the moon landing and everything, that means all of the countries that are also supposedly going to space are in collusion on the lie.
Also,
So that changes our understanding of the topographical landscape of the geopolitical relationships of nations.
Right.
Right. That's a very big
Interesting.
puzzle bit. So Russia and the US, the Cold War and all that, well, if they're all faking it and nobody's exposed to it and they continue to, that tells you some
they're
very
all in
interesting
cahoots.
That takes the compartmentalization of truth to a much higher level.
Mhm.
If all these countries are just kind of, playing, if it's like what
playing space.
yeah, if it's like wrestling, you know what I mean? If it's that fake, they've all
It's
agreed.
about that stupid, actually, when you get into the footage and all the green screen glitches and other stuff. It's like you might as well be watching WWF.
Like who is the shot caller above the supposed leaders of these different countries
Hmm.
that is dictating the rules about how far we can go out into the sea until we reach Antarctica. The Antarctica thing for me is that's the clencher.
60 degrees south.
That's the
No.
clencher for me, though. It's like,
Yeah.
why? Who said that? Who made up this arbitrary rule? And of
Mm.
course, there's reasoning for it, the penguins and whatever. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, to protect the environment, says the people who are like blanketing the entire planet in chemicals every day, 24/7, all over the world. And well, I don't know if nuclear weapons are real, but they're definitely destroying the environment on every front through, warfare and industrialization. Oh, those people want to protect the penguins. That's why we can't go to Antarctica. I mean, come on, people.
Well, if we go back to the Avatar thing, we have this narrative of these great trees, and if the realm is much larger, then maybe it's not so far fetched that the trees were once that big. And
Someone's getting it.
actually
Someone's getting it.
traveled with a guy who's done amazing research on this. I went to the Black Hills of South Dakota with him and saw a number of sites up close and personal with my own eyes, and it's undeniably tree. But we're talking about trees that are miles wide, right? Maybe even 50 to 100 miles wide, which is a scale that we can't fathom. And in the mainstream scientific narrative, we're taught that that's impossible because they would collapse under their own weight
Nonsense.
because of gravity.
Nonsense.
The theory of gravity.
The theory of gravity, exactly, right? So, and also this would be true of Titans as well, that they couldn't be that big because their bones wouldn't be able to support them. But when you start getting into the theory of gravity, you find out that it's also on flimsy ground, and that other things like density and buoyancy and static electricity make a lot more sense and actually explain our observed phenomenon without the need
Hey,
to invoke
Regina, welcome
a
in.
hypothetical
Cat, welcome in.
theory of gravity, because the supposed
Welcome back,
strong
Mouse.
force of gravity is one value, which I don't recall, but the static force, like if you rub a balloon against your head, and I want to get back to the balloon in a second because we were talking about gas pressure before. If you rub a balloon and it sticks to your head, you can pull it off and you can stick it to the wall. That force that's holding those two objects together is 10 to the 36th stronger than the strong force of gravity. That's a number with
Wow.
36 zeros behind it. They don't talk about that, right?
Wow.
And I mean, you could spend hours and hours and hours just talking about gravity itself. But when it comes to gas pressure, if we are inside of an enclosure, which all the ancients believed, right? And they believed in titans and they believed in gigantic trees as well. It's only our moderns that are like, no, that's a stupid idea. Well, if I blow up a balloon and I let it go, it's going to fly around the room rapidly as the gas pressure normalizes, right? If I blow it up and I tie it and I poke a hole in it, it's going to explode because that gas pressure just immediately disperses, right? So there's no scientific experiment that can be performed here where you can have gas pressure next to a vacuum without a barrier. It's not possible. That would be like I pressurized the gas that's in the balloon. Now I remove the balloon
It's
and it
still
stays pressurized. It just doesn't make any sense.
Show us balls of gas, Lobers. Come on, show me a ball of gas. I need to see this. Ridiculous claims they got.
Right. It's like
And so-
taking a can of spray paint and expecting the paint to just remain in a cylinder and just be held there by magic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's, and so that's
A block
that
it's a
defies
block
the
of
second
paint.
law of thermodynamics, apparently.
Yeah.
So, and yet we're told that our atmosphere sticks to the Earth as it is adjacent to a vacuum that has a 10 to the negative 17 Torr value, which
Whatever
is a
that
huge
means.
number as well. And yet the spacesuits never expand. And we're sending up rockets.
Hey,
which
welcome
are
back, Sketch.
supposedly, and the reason it doesn't go away,
Right, guys, we're gonna
is because
do this till like 15:15, so 7
the
minutes,
gravitational
guys.
gradient that as you get
I've got something to do this afternoon.
further
So
and further from the Earth, it gets weaker and weaker, and then there's this magic Goldilocks zone at 250
I
miles.
do apologise for the interruption there. I don't know what happened. My internet literally went down for 5 minutes and come back on.
Where the ISS
For
goes
some
around
reason, I
Earth,
don't know why.
perpetually falling,
It's
according
ridiculous.
to Einsteinian gravity, right? And okay, so even if you bought that delicate equilibrium of the gravitational gradient, we're still sending rockets out. So what happens when you poke a balloon with a pin? We're sending a rocket out into space. Wouldn't that disrupt that delicate equilibrium? There's all these things that we're just taught to accept as truth and fact, but when you start to just think about them logically, they don't make any sense. So, and one last thing with gravity,
yeah.
because that's how they talk about the trees and titans couldn't have existed because they were too big and they'd collapse under their own weight. That's something known as the the square cube law of gravity, that as you double the diameter of an object, you're increasing the volume exponentially, right? So if I go to an Earth that's twice as big, like we see way too far. There's infrared photography where observations are being made 500, 600 miles away, which categorically destroys the ball that's the size they tell us, because there's no atmospheric occlusion there's very little when you're looking with infrared.
It isn't
all
a
that
big, it
dim
isn't
light
a
and
massive
refraction
Earth.
and all that kind
Of
of stuff goes
sphere
out the
Earth.
window
It
when you're
isn't.
looking at that kind of
Doesn't matter how
distance
big the
photography.
ball is.
So
Like
then
when
You
you're
still should be
looking
able to
across-
detect
is it
curvature,
Lake
and you
Erie,
can't.
Chicago? Is that the lake there?
Never been
I've
measured
seen-
ever.
Yeah,
I've seen people.
yeah.
I've seen people.
What you're seeing here is a mirage.
Yeah,
Right? And that was disproven categorically by Rob Skiba and Rick Hummer, who took a boat across the lake.
Yeah, I remember
while
that.
training
That
the
footage.
camera on the Chicago skyline. And they
Oh,
went
really?
across the lake with the boat and could see the skyline the whole time.
Interesting.
So this, mirage or Fata Morgana, all that stuff.
Yeah.
No, that's not the
Oh, we got a
case.
link to that. By the way,
Yeah.
we'll put our show notes at lukestory.com/rocks. So
That rocks.
What's
wanna
happened, Jez?
put a
They've
bunch of
they
your links
censored
and
your
work,
comments.
in
I
there
can
as
I
well.
can see what you're writing
I
on
want to
there.
see that video
Oh.
because those to me, the seeing too far. I mean, I'm kind of done right there. I don't even need to theorize about the
Yeah.
rest of it. It's just like, well, that means one of two things is happening. The whole thing is a lie, or this shit is a giant magical water ball that is way, 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 way larger than we've been told. Because
And
that's the only way you could see that far. I mean,
And
it's just
it
very
can't
basic.
be in their model because
It isn't a large ball.
it's a game breaker for them, right? Because
Come
if
on,
we
guys.
increase the diameter, we've increased the volume dramatically. which means that our gravitational pull is going to be much, much greater. So if the Earth is a lot bigger than they tell us, then they're not going to be able to do all their trajectory computations to land rovers on Mars, which is all CGI anyway. They never actually show you any real footage of anything. So that right off the bat, if you go, oh, well, maybe, because a lot of people when confronted with this, the observations, they're like, oh, maybe it's just bigger. Or no, it's just so big you can't fathom how big it is. No, but I know geometry. That was one of my favorite subjects in school.
Just need the physics of water destroys all that nonsense.
And I know that if I do a trajectory from the top of the ball's going to fall away at a greater and greater rate depending on how far away from it.
Exponentially, just like the curve. Curve's exponential, right? It's not a smooth curve. From your position looking at every mile, it gets exponential. The curve gets greater, more fierce as you go out. So yeah, all this smooth curve,
You get
8 inches per mile. The square is there for a reason.
So
Right.
So if you have something that's bigger, you've increased the volume dramatically, which means you're changing all the gravitational pull. So it has to be the size that they're telling us. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do all of their tricks of landing things in different places.
Right. So that's foundational to the entire premise. And so if you alter that one variable and say, oh, whoops, then
it's a house of cards.
Okay,
almost all the ologies are a house of cards. That's the conclusion I've come to. Don't take my word for it.
It has to be 24,000 miles.
I mean, I wanted to talk about giant trees and animals and stuff, but I think it's going to be called something like, what if everything you've ever been told is a lie or something,
Bro, let me tell you a secret. It is. It is.
Blind blindness.
Right.
There's a lot,
So
going back to going back to the mountain and the big trees, it started as this what if, and then being really left brain and analytical. I'm intuitive also. I've got an artistic side to me, but I like to think a lot, and so I decided, well, if there's any truth to this, I'm going to get out my anatomy books and I'm going to start looking online and see if I can find elephant skulls online. And I did. I found an actual HD or 4K footage of a guy walking around an elephant skeleton. So I was able to see the skull from all of the different angles. And then I started looking at, our skulls have a structure. And even though the shape of skulls changed dramatically among mammals, the bones are similar. They just change form, but so the eye socket is actually made of 7 different bones that meet. And then those meeting points are called suture lines. The bone doesn't grow together. They're sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
And then you have fissures, like where the optic nerve goes. That's a bigger opening. And so I'm like, if there's any truth to this harebrained idea, then there should be some anatomical features inside the cave. And I'd been there many times before, and always marveled over how weird the place was. Like, how does this form? It's 375 meters. Sorry, I don't know what that is in yards now. I've been in Europe too long, but it's high up, and it's just this whole mountain is sitting. It's not part of a chain. It's just jutting upward, and everything around it is flat. And then the Mediterranean is right there, and then there's this apparent eye socket, and I was just like, this is too weird. And even when I was in it, before ever getting on these ideas, I was thinking it was weird, and I didn't understand geologically how that could form with.
We'll have to watch that later. I do apologise for that interruption. Me off.
The greatest form of control is where you think you're free when you're being fundamentally manipulated and dictated to. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell and you can see the bars and touch it. The other one is sitting in a prison cell but you can't see the bar, you think you're free. What the human race is suffering from is mass hypnosis.
Hey, welcome back, Laura. A big shout out to everyone that come in today. Big shout out to Scotty. Big shout out to Scotty Dog, Fiona, Laura, Regina, Matthew, Jeff, Mr. Chairs,
and in a world that is being
Dr. Bob, Logical,
unbelievably sick
Simon, Jeff,
between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is
Big shout out to Mouse. Big shout out to Suits.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's
Big shout out to Cap, Jim. Big shout out to Fathead. Big shout out to Brendan. Awesome coming in, dude. Charlie, big shout out to Charlie. Who else was there? Charlie, big shout out to Chris. Dr. E. Quite a lot of people come back, man. If I've missed anyone, Chills, Honor, Jax, Sandro. Big shout out to Sandro. What's up, Sandro? Hope you're well. Big shout out to Five. Can't forget Five. The old schooler in the house. Awesome dudes.
That's not all that I'm here to present you. I know about the Black Pope and Solomon's Temple. Yeah. About the Vatican assassins and how they will get you. And
has Voy been in this morning? I'm not too sure, Fiona, to be honest. But big shout out to Sketches. Can't forget Sketches, man. Big shout out to Sketch. Hope you're doing well, Sketch. What's it? No, I don't know, Fiona. I'm not too sure. Big shout out to Chills, man. Nice one, Chills.
And you know that's the information that they suppress and devour. Who you think the motherfuckers that crashed in the tower? Who you think that made it turn into ash in an hour? The same ones that invaded your own. The ones that never told you about the skeletons on the moon. Yeah, the ones that poison all the food you consume. The ones that never told you about the Mount Vesuvius tombs. The bird flu is a lie. The swan flu is a lie. Why would that even come as a surprise? Yeah, the beast has war. Your wolf made you die. It caused cancer and it cost a lot of people their lives. Do y'all know about Bohemian Grove? How the world leaders sacrificing children in robes? Lucifer is God in the public school system. I suggest you open up your ears and you listen.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us modern day slaves. And everybody's just walking around, out in the clouds, and won't awaken to a dead in the grave. By then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of the day.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real. If you can persuade them that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see, you got them. Because they'll laugh in the face of an explanation that portrays the bigger picture of what's happening. And they have.
"25 years I've been on the force. I've seen every kind of sick, depraved act known to humanity, and still, when I see a black man walk by who has more money than me, I want to vomit my gizzards right into the gutter. But why? Maybe there is no reason. Maybe there's just a big blue ball out there that's mostly covered with water, and we're just going along for the ride."
DJ Ill Will.
Oh, this is Mo drinking balls in your mouth all day, every day. Hey, you tuned in to Fuck What You Heard Radio, where you can stick a dick in your ear and shut the fuck up, bitch. But anyway, we got your new K-Dot record. I know you in traffic. Where you at, baby?
Down Rosecrans, 87 Regal, sipping on a gold can, gun tucked like the fetal position. Top dog coalition, coexisting with the coldest whoever quoted from California district. Been a corner like David Banner, I'm the owner of the marijuana aroma. You smelling, hit a donut, yelling, it's me, bitches. Who did it? I did it. Take them where they can't go. Like Planet Venus, leaning like a mad scientist. Laboratory bottles of empty Heineken, telling stories about the ones that came before me. Chinamen squinting this eye because I'm blooded. My shine is bigger than the striker lighting, and they like it him because I like to win, never lose. Put me on a pedestal, bet I pedal victories until I pedal off my shoes. Welcome to the Lions Room, challenge anybody who wanna try they luck. They get fucked up and all you heard was ooh. Say hello to the little big homie, and your reality ain't realer than this, homie.
Awesome. Oh, I sent some stuff on Gmail. Oh, I'll check it out. Check this Arwin parody song out. So, is that from Terror? Is that from Terror 5? Alright, guys. Have a great weekend. I will see you next time, next Thursday, same time, 9:30 to 10 GMT. Till then, take care. Have a good one, guys.